Welcome back to the video lecture on Asian state practice in the domestic implementation of international law. Again, this time we are going to talk about the environment. And this subsection highlights the legal recognition and implementation, application of environmental rights within ASEAN, the national legal system, and specifically, we are going to discuss the climate change related litigation with the ASEAN domestic legal system. The term climate litigation refers to legal proceedings initiated to establish responsibility for the failure to prevent the climate change and or to mitigate its negative consequences. These legal proceedings can be initiated at courts, tribunals, and other rule compliance monitoring bodies operating around the world, both at the domestic, regional, or global level. They can be based on rules of domestic, regional, and or the international law, both of the public, the administrative, and private, the civil law character. The climate litigation has become a popular and essential tool to urge action to prevent dangerous climate change and support the goal of the Paris Agreement. It has been used all over the world, including ASEAN. The new cases of climate litigation are constantly emerging, and it is becoming a difficult task to keep track of all these cases. For example, the Urgenda case in the Netherlands is probably the best known examples of the first generation climate litigation in Europe. It has received much attention and scholarship and has inspired others all over Europe and beyond to initiate similar proceedings, adopting an identical or at least very similar legal strategy. Mention must be made here also Belgium, the Climat-Trac, as a successful case in France. In a judgment 14 October 2021, the Paris Administrative Court ordered the state of France to compensate for the ecological consequences caused by its failure to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and combat climate change. This was an administrative case, not a tort case, based on international human rights law, which showed the great variety that exists within this collection of European climate litigation cases. The Urgenda case, for example, was introduced in the Netherlands court by a foundation called the Urgenda, established under the Dutch private law. The claim was directed against the state of the Netherlands. The Urgenda believed that the government of the Netherlands should be held responsible for not doing enough to prevent dangerous climate change, or for not taking adequate action to mitigate the harmful effect thereof. Urgenda claimed that this inaction qualifies inter alia as a breach of Articles 2, Right to Life, and 8, Family Life of the European Convention on Human Rights. On 20 December 2019, the Netherlands Supreme Court ruled in Urgenda's favor to support their conclusions and their interpretation of the relevant human rights provisions. The Dutch court made many reference to the case law of the European Convention on Human Rights. This Dutch ruling has inspired other European-based claimants to initiate similar proceedings, rely on the same European Convention on Human Rights provision, and supported by the same European Convention on the human rights, the cases referred to European Court of Human Rights. Most human rights-based climate litigation is directed against the state. This is logical, as states are the subject of international law with the primary responsibility to ensure the enjoyment of human rights to everyone residing within their jurisdiction. But states are not necessarily the only actors bearing responsibility for climate change. And thus, climate litigation has also been undertaken against private actors. For example, the Shell case is the most important example thus far. In the Shell case, the Hague District Court held that The multinational oil company, the Shell, which was at the time the proceedings were initiated still headquarters in The Hague, was doing too little to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and prevent serious climate change. The court held that the Shell was acting in breach of its duty of care, a tort under domestic Dutch law. The court did not find the Shell acting in breach of Article 2A European Convention on Human Rights directly, but the court did find that these provisions could be used to flesh out the unwritten duty of care as it exists under Dutch domestic law. Climate litigation can be initiated before domestic courts, as was done in the Urgenda and the Shell cases. But the regional courts also provide a suitable forum. One recent example is the case currently pending before the European Court of Human Rights, brought by the 4 Portuguese children and the 2 young adults against all European Union member states in the United Kingdom, Norway, Russia, Turkey, Switzerland, and Ukraine. The Portuguese youngsters hold all these states jointly responsible for failure to take effective measures to mitigate the harmful effects of climate change. The youngsters used the same European human rights-based climate litigation strategy as was used in both the Urgenda and Shell cases, but they added a new dimension. They argue that the inaction complained of qualified as a breach affecting use in particular, thus constituting a breach of the Article 14 European Convention on Human Rights, which provide that the enjoyment of rights and freedoms set forth in the European Convention on Human Rights shall be secured without discrimination on any ground, including age. The Portuguese youngsters' climate litigation strategy is thus in line with the European human rights-based climate litigation approach. At the time of the writing, the European Court of Human Rights was yet to decide on the admissibility of application before it can turn its attention to the merits. But even at this very early and preliminary stage in the proceedings, the case has attracted lots of scholarly and media and public attention. The most important characteristics of the European approach is that it is based on the international human rights law, primarily the European Convention on Human Rights. In scholarship, we see that the problematic aspects of this human rights-based approach are beginning to emerge, and thus the cases referred to above, they seem to be only the beginning of the trend that is maturing and evolving. Let me turn to the Asia. The first talking about the prospect for climate litigation in China. Recently, there has been much interest from the scholarly community in the potential of public interest litigation for the protection of the environment in China, for example, so-called the environmental public interest litigation. As noted in the previous classes, the modifications to the Chinese civil procedure law and its environmental protection law has made it possible for environmental NGO and the procuratory to engage in environmental public interest litigation, including by initiating cases addressing air pollution in China. Since the problematic of the air pollution and climate change are closely linked, this might open opportunity also for climate litigation in a strict sense. That said, in practice, China is still largely missing from the global trends of the climate litigation. One explanation for this substance might be that the lack of specific national climate acts make it challenging for local NGOs and others to find the specific legal basis for initiating climate litigation in China, although it must be added that judges in China do find a way to overcome this hurdle. Another reason might be that climate litigation touches upon complex constitutional relations, such as the way in which the court might influence government climate policies, and vice versa. There are continuing hurdles for climate litigation in China, as it is too early to draw the meaningful conclusions as to whether there is an identifiable Chinese approach to climate litigation and is distinct from the so-called European approach. It does seem apparent that the most successful Chinese style of the climate litigation is not based on international human rights law and the total approach, but rather on domestic Chinese administrative law, policies, processes, and procedures. Indeed, various legal bases for climate change litigation in China have already been identified with encouraging prospects. Now that the Chinese government is promoting ecological civilization reform and allowing, even if in a limited way, the judicial activism, opportunities for the court to engage in some limited form of the climate litigation are expected to grow with an immediate positive impact on the number of climate litigation initiatives. Thank you very much for your very kind attention.